Have you ever had déjà vu that felt too real to dismiss? Not the casual kind, but the kind where your body reacts before your mind catches up. Have synchronicities been stacking up so precisely they almost feel staged? Have you noticed moments where reality seems to glitch, where time stretches or compresses, where a single second feels dense with meaning? If you've experienced that, you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're not too imaginative. You're perceiving something most people filter out. And if that realization ever made you feel isolated, like you can't talk about it without being labeled, strange, there's a reason for that. You feel alone because you're operating at a different frequency. Not better, different, like a radio tuned slightly off the dominant station. Here's the pattern no one explained to you. When quantum consciousness begins to surface, the subconscious mind stops passively consuming reality and starts interacting with it. That's when the hidden reality begins to leak through the cracks, not as visions, not as beliefs, but as patterns you can't unsee. Most people never notice. They're locked into habit, routine, predictability. But some people, maybe you start noticing anomalies. Small breaks in the story we've been told about how the world works. Moments that don't fit the official script. And science knows this is happening. It just doesn't know how to talk about it without tearing itself apart. Because buried inside quantum mechanics is a problem so disturbing it's been quietly avoided for decades. A problem that suggests reality doesn't exist independently of observation. A problem that implies the observer effect isn't a metaphor, it's a mechanism. In controlled experiments, first performed in the late 20th century, particles behaved differently depending on whether they were being observed. Not measured, observed. When no observer was present, reality remained probabilistic, spread out, undefined, vibrating as pure potential inside the quantum field. But the moment observation occurred, that wave collapsed into a single outcome. Reality didn't just reveal itself, it decided. That shouldn't be possible. And yet, it keeps happening. This is where mainstream science gets uncomfortable. Because if consciousness plays a role in reality creation, then matter isn't fundamental. Meaning is, information is, awareness is. And that conclusion destabilizes everything from physics to philosophy to power. Several papers exploring this connection were rejected again and again. 14 rejections is one documented case. The stated reason was simple, too metaphysical, not wrong, not disproven, just dangerous. Because once you accept that consciousness interacts with reality at a foundational level, everything changes. Time stops being strictly linear. Causality becomes flexible. And those moments you thought were coincidences suddenly aren't. Synchronicities stop looking random. Déjà vu stops feeling accidental. The sense that reality bends around attention starts making a disturbing kind of sense. This is why spiritual awakening doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels destabilizing, because your internal model of the world can't survive what you're starting to perceive. Your vibration shifts, your frequency changes, and suddenly the old explanations don't work anymore. That's also why you may feel alone. It's not because you're superior, it's because consciousness doesn't expand uniformly. A radio doesn't pick up every station at once. Neither does perception. And here's the part most people miss. The quantum field doesn't respond to thoughts alone. It responds to coherence between thought, emotion, and attention. That's why intention without awareness fails. And why awareness without integration feels overwhelming. Something is interacting with you, not spiritually in a vague sense, scientifically in a way that has names, equations, and experimental data attached to it. But the implications are so radical that even physicists hesitate to follow them to their logical conclusion. Because if this is true, then reality isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. And that would mean those moments, the déjà vu, the impossible synchronicities, the feeling that time distorted just enough for you to notice, were never glitches at all. They were signals. Stay with me. This isn't for everyone. In the next part, we're going to look at the exact experiment that pushed this question too far, and why what scientists found terrified them enough to try to bury it. Stay with me. This video isn't for everyone, only for those who've noticed something feels off. If something clicked while you were listening, you belong here. I want you to share one thing in the comments. Your most unexplainable synchronicity. Be specific. When it happened, what you noticed, how it felt. I'm reading every one, not for reactions, but to recognize patterns that don't show up in isolation. When you choose to like this video, you're not boosting a channel. You're signaling the algorithm to surface this conversation to others, quietly searching for the same truth. And subscribing isn't following content. It's stepping into a space where consciousness operates at a different frequency. What comes next builds on this deeper, clearer, and harder to ignore. Quantum physics shattered the oldest assumption we have, that reality exists independently of us. In 1927, at the Fifth Solvay Conference, Niels Bohr confirmed through debate and experimental evidence that particles do not possess definite properties until measured. Later refinements of the double slit experiment proved something far more disturbing. At the smallest scale, particles behave as probabilities, not objects, until an observer is involved. This is the observer effect, and it means reality does not simply happen. It responds. That fact alone should change how you interpret your life, because if perception collapses probability, then those moments where events align too precisely are not accidents. The synchronicities that arrive exactly when you stop forcing outcomes. The déjà vu that feels emotionally heavier than memory. The sense that multiple versions of your life almost intersect. This is quantum consciousness becoming personal. Your subconscious mind brushing against the hidden reality beneath appearances. In 2022, researchers studying quantum entanglement confirmed that correlated particles respond instantaneously in ways that ignore classical time ordering. Information behaved as if past and future were negotiable. Energy followed relationship, not distance. Frequency mattered more than location. This forces a radical conclusion. Consciousness expansion is not metaphorical. It is interaction. Reality creation is participatory. A Nobel Prize winner said the quiet part out loud decades ago. Max Planck stated that consciousness is fundamental and matter is derivative. They don't teach you this in school because a population that understands this cannot be controlled through fear or separation. If you've lived a moment where reality answered your attention, describe it in the comments with details. This is how awakened perception recognizes itself. And it gets stranger, because what follows forces us to rethink time itself. In 1961, physicist John Archibald Wheeler proposed an experiment that most of his colleagues quietly dismissed. He asked a question that violated everything classical physics depended on. What if a choice made in the present could determine what happened in the past? At the time, it sounded like metaphysics disguised as science. Decades later, in 1999, researchers at the University of Maryland tested his idea through what became known as the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. The results were precise, repeatable, and deeply disturbing. When information about a particle's path was erased after detection, interference patterns reappeared, as if the particle had never chosen a path at all. A measurement made now altered behavior that had already occurred. Not symbolically, literally. This means the quantum field does not obey the time you experience. Perception reaches backward. Reality creation is not a fixed movie playing from past to future. It's a conversation across probability, and your consciousness is part of that dialogue. If that makes you uncomfortable, it should, because it explains why certain moments in your life feel retroactively charged with meaning. Why a synchronicity today reframes something that happened years ago. Why déjà vu arrives with certainty rather than confusion. This is consciousness expansion in real time. The subconscious mind interfacing with a hidden reality where frequency matters more than sequence. Entanglement confirms it. Two particles share one state regardless of distance, responding instantly as a single system. Energy and information ignore space, and now time. Quantum consciousness is not local, and neither are you. That sense that parallel outcomes almost brush against awareness during spiritual awakening is not emission. It's perception adjusting to a deeper layer of reality. Nobel Prize winner Eugene Wigner eventually admitted that consciousness must be fundamental to quantum mechanics. not an emergent byproduct. But they don't teach this in school because it destabilizes a world built on predictability and control. If you've experienced a moment where timing felt impossible, describe it in the comments with details. This isn't engagement. It's how a tribe of awakened perception recognizes itself. And it gets stranger, because this is where everything changes. Because this is where the foundation finally cracks. Here's what truly terrifies materialist science. Every equation, every law of physics, every model used to describe reality is written in mathematics. Yet mathematics does not exist in physical space. You can't touch it. You can't weigh it. It has no mass, no location, no energy signature, and yet it governs everything. It exists only in mind. In 1935, Erwin Schrödinger formalized the wave function, showing that physical systems remain suspended as probabilities until observation. Later replications of the double-slit experiment confirmed that particles behave as waves of possibility until perception intervenes. Matter does not lead, meaning does. Energy follows awareness inside the quantum field. If this feels personal, that's because it is. Those synchronicities that arrive when you stop forcing outcomes. The déjà vu that feels like memory leaking from another version of your life. The sense that parallel realities almost touch your perception during spiritual awakening. This is quantum consciousness becoming intimate. Your subconscious mind is no longer reacting to reality. It's participating in reality creation through frequency and vibration. Entanglement deepens the rupture. Two particles share one state regardless of distance, responding instantly as a single system. Information ignores space. Mathematics ignores matter, which means the hidden reality beneath physics is mental, not mechanical. Consciousness expansion is not poetic language. It's the direct consequence of perception interacting with structure. In 1931, Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, stated plainly, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. Matter is derivative from consciousness." But they don't teach you this in school because a population that understands this cannot be controlled through fear, separation, or linear time. If you've experienced a moment where reality responded to your awareness, write it in the comments with details. This is how awakened perception recognizes itself. And it gets stranger because if consciousness is fundamental, then death, time, and separation don't mean what we were taught. And here is where everything changes. Because here is the moment everything quietly reorganizes. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. What began as physics turned into recognition, and recognition doesn't stay intellectual. It settles into the body. The journey you just moved through wasn't random information. It was a sequence. Quantum consciousness, the quantum field, the observer effect, entanglement, perception, reality creation. Each layer narrowing until only one conclusion remains. Reality does not happen to you. It happens through you. Nothing new was added. Nothing mystical was granted. Consciousness expansion is not acquiring a power. It is remembering one that was always there and deliberately muted. Your subconscious mind has always been collapsing possibilities into experience, tuning outcomes through vibration and frequency. You were simply trained to forget, trained to externalize authority, trained to believe energy and meaning lived outside you. If you feel unsettled right now, that's not fear. It's calibration. A frequency shift feels strange at first. Spiritual awakening rarely arrives as peace. It arrives as disorientation because the old map no longer matches what perception is detecting. Feel it in your chest. The acceleration isn't anxiety. It's recognition. Something inside you just aligned with a deeper layer of the hidden reality. Here is the implication no one rushes to explain. If consciousness collapses reality, then time is not a straight line. Separation is not fundamental, and death cannot mean what you were taught. You don't need answers yet. Just notice what happens when the idea lands. The discomfort is the signal. This knowledge has always been suppressed for a reason. Minds that know they shape reality cannot be managed the same way. Control requires forgetfulness. You didn't arrive here by accident. Alignment brought you here. Thousands are waking simultaneously, tuning into the same frequency, and this space is becoming a point of convergence. You are not alone. even if it felt that way before now. In the comments, write one phrase: I am the observer, or consciousness creates, or I see beyond the veil. This isn't engagement. It's a declaration, a public collapse of intention that strengthens the collective field and attracts resonant awareness. Say it and notice what shifts. Something irreversible has already begun. You can feel it. Pause. Breathe. What happens next depends on the choice you make in the next few seconds. Something changed in you while you were watching this, and it won't return to how it was. That shift you feel isn't imagination. It's awareness settling into a new configuration. Quantum consciousness doesn't rewind once it's activated. Perception expands, and the quantum field responds. Now make it coherent. In the comments, write one phrase: I am the observer, or consciousness creates, or I see beyond the veil. This isn't engagement. A public declaration collapses intention. It feeds a shared field that draws in minds resonating at the same frequency, strengthening a collective movement of consciousness expansion. If this matters, signal it. Liking this video tells the algorithm to surface it to others quietly searching for the same hidden reality. That's not vanity. That's access. And subscribing isn't passive. This channel is a space for those operating on a different frequency, where each video reveals deeper layers of spiritual awakening through science. Next, we go further than anyone expects. The quantum experiment that proved God is real. Scientists are being silenced. Your consciousness brought you here. Reality responds. What happens now is choice.